This is the Ishi Weekly, the discipline of determined intent. I am Gareth Holbrook. Thought that leads to action, action that is thoughtful. In this podcast, I will explore the Ishi spiral through the lens of an ultra-endurance athlete, leadership coach, engineer, and farmer. The first few episodes will be excerpts from the book, the autobiographical sections, talking about Ironman, coast to coast, and other races I've taken part in. Enjoy. The limits of endurance. By the end of 2016, everything had lined up for me. Ironman Western Australia in Busselton had gone to plan. I finished in 10 hours, 58 minutes, which was and still is my only time under 11 hours. My pacing was controlled, nutrition went according to plan. I followed through on every predetermined decision. In 2012, I had swum around the 1.84 kilometre long pier and became seasick. It had cost me an extra 30 minutes in the swim. I remember thinking, while at the far end of the swim, that the brand new $800 speed suit was of no use if I couldn't hold in breakfast. In 2016, the sea was calm and I achieved my fastest ever 3.8 kilometre swim. It was a hot day and I had to strain every sinew to maintain the necessary pace in the final few kilometres. Years of incremental progress had finally consolidated. Qualifying outright for the Ironman World Championship in Kona no longer felt beyond reach. I committed to a structured training plan with my coach for the next race. After finishing a consulting contract in Canberra, I gave myself 3 uninterrupted months of training and increased training volumes. My training was precise and consistent because, unusually for me, I could remove competing demands. When I looked at the data on training peaks, nothing raised concern. When I returned to New Zealand and started the Ironman New Zealand build, I followed the plan almost perfectly. My weight dropped gradually, my functional threshold power rose steadily, and my resting heart rate was as expected. Scheduled sessions with coach Rob Dallimore and my swim coach Hayden Woolley were completed. The signals were reassuring, but I failed to notice a subtle disengagement and mental degradation. During the taper, my mood deflated in a few days before the race. I wasn't tired or anxious, I was flat. The usual anticipation was missing. Picking up my race pack, filled with sponsors' goodies, felt procedural when in previous years it had excited me. Standing by Lake Taupo, the day before the race, watching the wind roughen the water, I thought, I just don't care. I told Rob as much. I was surprised and a bit sad at my indifference. Race morning brought a heavy chop to Lake Taupo, which is almost the size of Singapore and can sometimes kick up a surf. Within minutes of the swim start, I felt nauseous. Seasickness had affected at least half of my previous races, which is hilarious given I've served at sea in the Navy, but this was far more severe. Every time I lifted my head to sight, I vomited. I stopped repeatedly, holding rescue kayaks while apologising between retches. I kept moving, but badly, sometimes in circles. At the halfway mark, my watch showed I'd been swimming for over an hour. The margin was ominously slender. Ultimately, I finished the swim in 2 hours and 23. The cut-off was 2 hours 20, and this was the first time I posted a DNF. Did not finish. It was only later that day I put on a volunteer shirt and helped athletes later through the transition that I finally recognised what had been staring me in the face. I hadn't ignored the plan or skipped the work. I'd failed to notice when the decision to race itself needed review. Physically I was on form. Psychologically, however, I was drained. There was no mechanism to detect that imbalance early enough to act on it. Effort continued beyond the system said it should. The problem was persistence without governance. I had no way to test whether the cost of holding the line still made sense. Volume increased, focus narrowed, and spare capacity disappeared. The system rewarded adherence and ignored erosion. The DNF exposed a gap in how I govern myself. Discipline without self-governance carries me into failure. The awareness came too late. Races can unravel even when preparation is sound. Not from bad choices, but from never pausing to check whether the choices still fit. At Taupo, I'd learned that endurance alone is insufficient. Without a way to review intent, cost and direction, discipline keeps going long after it should have been changed. What is necessary are predefined governance boundaries, abort set triggers and safety exits. These are explicitly set in the Ishi phase. In 2022, Kona showed me what happens when persistence overwhelms judgement. 5 years earlier, Topo had presented the lesson of what happens when preparation ignores psychological cost. Both failures revealed the same gap. Effort continued while the mechanism that should have governed it was absent. Thanks for listening to the Ishi Weekly. Please subscribe and find more content on Substack and YouTube. Ishi, the Discipline of Determined Intent, is available on Amazon and Kindle.